Before we could explain things with modern science, we made up stories. Some of these were passed down, but many were created independently. A few millennia later, some anthropologists realized these isolated myths actually shared some features. Some old dudes argued about the similarities until this guy won out in popular culture. His book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, gave the world what would become the hero's journey. Then this guy made it more useful for us screenwriters with the writer's journey. The book starts by exploring the character archetypes we covered in the last video. But in this one, we'll explore how they fit into a simplified 12-stage journey that you can use as a guiding template for your screenplay structure. But the whole book is still well worth reading, so grab a copy at the link in the description, find it used online, or just borrow it from a library. The first act of the hero's journey is referred to as the separation or departure, and the first stage is called the ordinary world. Though calling it the first stage is a bit misleading. Stages don't always happen in perfect succession. They can be delayed, spread out, or even repeat. Like with archetypes, it's often easier to think of stages in terms of function. Rather than explaining a story beat by beat, they help us understand what needs to be accomplished within each act. So it's more like the first item on our list of things to accomplish is establishing the ordinary world. Or at least our hero's ordinary world. Life as a moisture farmer under a galactic empire isn't ordinary to us, but it is to Luke Skywalker in A New Hope, which means we need to meet our hero. He's closely followed by his slump-shouldered nephew, Luke Skywalker, a farm boy with heroic aspirations who looks much younger than his 18 years. And begin to explore their flaws and internal conflicts, like immaturity and selfishness.
Take these two over to the garage, will you? I want them cleaned up before dinner.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
You can waste time with your friends when your chores are done.
Many mythic heroes also lack something external, often in the form of a missing loved one like a parent.
He died about the same time as your father.
You knew my father?
The ordinary world is also a good time to introduce the stakes for your hero, society, the world, or even the galaxy.
With all we've been through, sometimes I'm amazed we're in as good condition as we are. What with the rebellion and all.
You know of the rebellion against the Empire?
That's how we think.
Though this can also be accomplished in a prologue, or during the next stage, the call to adventure. Though you've probably heard this same idea referred to as the inciting incident, catalyst, or trigger. Put simply, this is an event that sets the conflict of the story in motion. It calls our hero to leave their ordinary world and embark on an adventure. This call is often delivered by a herald, an archetype we discussed in the previous video, who might bring a message of warning or a plea.
I have placed information vital to the survival of the rebellion into the memory systems of this R2 unit. My father will know how to retrieve it. You must see this droid safely delivered to him on Alderaan. This is our most desperate hour. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
But the call could also come in the form of a simple invitation.
You must learn the ways of the Force, if you're to come with me to Alderaan.
Or be born out of a lack of something or loss of someone.
Andrew! I'm going!
Luke stumbles around in a daze looking for his aunt and uncle. Suddenly he comes upon their smoldering remains. And sometimes, the hero simply runs out of any clear options other than to pursue the conflict.
I want to come with you to Alderaan. There's nothing for me here now.
It's probably obvious by this point that a story can have multiple calls to action. While there's usually one major incident, the others are often necessary to help our hero overcome the next stage, the refusal of the call. Where most people strive to avoid conflict, a hero takes it on. But heroes rarely start as heroes, so it's natural that their initial response to the call to adventure is to completely avoid it.
Alderaan? I'm not going to Alderaan. I've got to get home. It's late. I'm in for it as it is.
Usually by coming up with a whole host of excuses.
I can't get involved. I've got work to do. It's not that I like the Empire. I hate it, but there's nothing I can do about it right now. It's such a long way from here.
And even when heroes don't refuse the call, when they seek out adventure, other characters will likely try to stop them.
I told you to forget it. Your only concern is to prepare those new droids for tomorrow.
Or at least express their concerns.
Luke's just not a farmer, Owen. He has too much of his father in him.
That's what I'm afraid of.
To overcome this debate and doubt, a hero will likely need help, which brings us to our next stage, meeting the mentor. Just like it's natural to refuse the call to adventure, it's equally reasonable to seek a bit of help while considering the call. This usually means turning to a mentor, or characters that can at least function as a mentor temporarily, who can provide the hero with advice and training.
Remember, a Jedi can feel the Force flowing through him.
You mean he controls your actions?
Partially. but it also obeys your commands.
along with supplies.
Your father's lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight.
To give the hero the confidence to answer the call. It can often be helpful to think of a mentor as an enlightened hero, someone who's been through their own journey.
Anakin Skywalker, meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Hi. You're a Jedi too? Pleased to meet you.
And return with knowledge they can now pass on to a new generation when they're no longer able to answer the call themselves.
I need your help, Luke. She needs your help. I'm getting too old for this sort of thing.
But not all mentors are what they seem. Shapeshifters and shadows often wear the mask of a mentor.
Your patience has paid off.
Your guidance more than my patience.
They deceive the hero and trick them into dangerous situations or recruit them to their cause.
To cheat death is a power only one has achieved. But if we work together, I know we can discover the secret.
Anakin kneels before Palpatine.
I pledge myself to your teachings.
And even positive mentorships can turn tragic if the pupil is distrusting or ungrateful.
It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's jealous. He's holding me back.
Or prone to violence.
Don't make me kill you. Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy!
If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Or the mentor can cause issues because they find it too difficult to let their pupil go, like a parent worried about their child leaving home.
If you end your training now, if you choose the quick and easy path, as Vader did, you will become an agent of evil.
But ultimately, the purpose of meeting the mentor is to prepare the hero to answer the call to adventure, to cross the first threshold into the special world. Unfortunately for our hero, it's rarely that easy. The final push to commit completely to the adventure often requires what Vogler describes as an external force which changes the course or intensity of the story. He is stunned and cannot speak. Hate replaces fear, and a new resolve comes over him. This often compounds with inner forces pushing in the same direction.
I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
But there's still more in their way. The hero will often need to get past Threshold Guardians, a character archetype that serves to block the hero's journey and test their mettle. These might be enemies hoping to stop or capture our hero.
How long have you had these droids?
About 3 or 4 seasons.
They're up for sale if you want them.
Let me see your identification.
Or future allies only temporarily wearing the Threshold Guardian mask.
10,000, all in advance.
10,000?
While Threshold Guardians appear throughout a story, Vogler highlights their tendency to cluster around threshold crossings. And though they don't have to be, these crossings are often literal. The hero might have to travel across borders into a new town or territory, or through doorways into an unfamiliar world, or even break through the atmosphere into space itself. The crossing can be a moment or a sequence, but the most important thing is that crossing the threshold is irrevocable. Once you've entered into the special world, there's no turning back.
You'll have to sell your speeder.
That's okay. I'm never coming back to this planet again.
Vogler calls this moment the leap of faith, and points out that the hero doesn't always land gently. The leap of faith may turn into a crisis of faith, as romantic illusions about the special world are shattered by first contact with it.
Our position's correct, except there's no Alderaan.
What do you mean? Where is it?
So I'm trying to tell you, kid, it ain't there. It's totally blown away.
What? How?
Which brings us into the second act, often called the initiation. Despite usually being about twice as long as the first act, the second actually has one fewer stage. For that to make sense, you have to remember that the stages can be drawn out or repeated. A task made easier by the plural title of our next stage, Tests, Allies, and Enemies. The main function of this stage is to put our hero through trials and tests to prepare them for the higher stakes conflicts later in the story. If the mentor is still along for this stage of the journey, they may continue to test and train the hero themselves.
Stretch out with your feelings.
Luke stands in one place, seemingly frozen. The Seeker makes a dive at Luke, and incredibly, he manages to deflect the bolts. Or an ally might have some unique skill to teach the hero.
Boy, it's lucky you had these compartments.
I use them for smuggling. I never thought I'd be smuggling myself in them.
Or it may be as simple as our hero needing to fight their way past shadow forces. How the hero handles these tests and who they do it with creates and strengthens bonds and helps our hero determine how much they can trust their new allies.
All right, kid. You better be right about this.
All right.
What's your plan?
but it also puts new enemies on high alert.
Send a scanning crew aboard. I want every part of this ship checked.
Yes.
The tests help our hero adjust to the realities of this new special world before they and their allies approach the inmost cave. With a strong footing in the special world, the hero is ready to get back to the journey they were called to and head for the heart of the conflict.
Well, who? Who has he found?
Princess Leia.
The princess? She's here?
Though it doesn't have to be, this approach is often literal, with our hero venturing deeper into enemy territory, with new threshold guardians as tests at every layer.
Where are you taking this thing?
Prisoner transfer from cell block 1138.
I wasn't notified. I'll have to clear it.
Each one raising the stakes with enemy forces closing in.
Who is this? What's your operating number?
Han blasts the comlink and it explodes.
Boring conversation anyway.
Luke, we're gonna have company!
And bigger confrontations breaking out. Until our hero is out of options.
Are there any other ways out of the cell bay? We've been cut off!
And forced to confront death itself in the supreme ordeal. I don't love calling this stage the supreme ordeal because it sounds a lot like the climax. Supreme means superior to all others, but in this case, it's really only the supreme ordeal so far.
This is the worst day of my life.
The worst day of your life so far.
In this stage, the hero reaches the deepest chamber in the inmost cave, the belly of the beast, the heart of the conflict. Often because at this point, they can't turn back. It's the only place left to go.
What the hell are you doing?
Somebody has to save our skins. Into the garbage chute, flyboy!
And maybe because they're forced into it, they lose. Suddenly, Luke is yanked under the garbage.
Luke!
In fact, they die. Then everything is deathly quiet. At the very least, metaphorically. With a rush of bubbles and muck, Luke suddenly bobs to the surface. Or from another character's perspective.
Listen to them. They're dying, R2. Curse my metal body. I wasn't fast enough. It's all my fault.
Or sometimes another character temporarily wearing the mask of the hero dies. Vader brings his sword down, cutting old Ben in half. With these moments often coming during a confrontation with the Shadow or their underlings. But our characters can experience death without it changing them. While a brush with death can certainly have negative consequences,
Can't believe he's gone.
it should also change our hero in a way that prepares them for the greater conflict still to come. In some sense, experiencing death comes with a reward. The ordeal often transforms a hero into something stronger.
You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Vogler describes a version of this as the death of the ego. The hero is now fully part of the cosmos, dead to the old limited version of things and reborn into a new consciousness of connections. Sometimes literally.
Run, Luke, run!
Luke looks around to see where the voice came from. Other changes are more subtle, like a change in personality or newfound confidence. Han chases the stormtroopers down a long sub-hallway. He's yelling and brandishing his laser pistol. Or sometimes overconfidence. Han's determined look begins to fade. Solo jumps backward as they fire at him. But beyond self-improvement, the hero is often rewarded with an item or allies needed to complete their journey in a moment called seizing the sword.
At least the information in R2 is still intact.
What's so important? What's he carrying?
The technical readouts of that battle station. I only hope that when the data's analyzed, a weakness can be found.
The hero and his allies are also often given a bit of a break, sometimes for rest and recuperation, but more so to prepare.
We have no time for SR's commander. You must use the information in this R2 unit to help plan the attack. It's our only hope.
To ensure they're ready for the final act as we begin the return, starting with the road back. The road back is another stage whose name frustrates me. Just look at what Vogler writes. Although the special world may have its charms, few heroes elect to stay. Most take the road back, returning to the starting point, or continuing on the journey to a totally new locale or ultimate destination. I like this book, but in what world would someone describe continuing on to a new place as taking a road back? It's more like taking the road eventually leading out of the special world. Okay, that's a pretty bad title, but you get the point. After a bit of rest and reward, this stage is another major threshold, often with another guardian that forces our hero to make the choice to recommit to the adventure.
Why'd you come with us? Pretty good in a fight. Could use you.
Come on. Why don't you take a look around? You know what's about to happen, what they're up against.
Though a shadow on their tails may not always give them much of a choice.
Yes. We're approaching the planet Yavin. The
rebel base is on a moon on the far side. We are preparing to orbit the planet.
This is also the point in the adventure where it's common for the goals to change, increasing the stakes and impact of potential outcomes.
The battle station is heavily shielded and carries a firepower greater than half the Starfleet. Its defenses are designed around a direct, large-scale assault. A small, one-man fighter should be able to penetrate the outer defense.
And similar to our hero being tested after crossing the threshold into Act 2, this threshold will result in the greatest test of all, the climax of the story in the resurrection. Didn't we already have a death and resurrection?
We've had one, yes. What about second breakfast?
Well, we're doing it again. One last time. The most dangerous meeting with death. The climax. It's one final chance for our hero to demonstrate how they've grown by combining the best of who they were.
But it's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home. They're not much bigger than T-meters.
With the hero they've become.
Luke, the Force will be with you.
One final confrontation with the Shadow where it looks like our hero is about to lose everything.
Rebel base in range.
You may fire when ready.
But with the knowledge they've gained,
use the Force, Luke.
Luke's hand reaches for the control panel and presses a button. The targeting device moves away. And some help from the friends they made along the journey.
You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home.
They defy the odds and defeat the Shadow. The Death Star bursts into a supernova, creating a spectacular heavenly display. This encounter with death and rebirth gives the audience a sense of catharsis as they experience the emotional release of the hero's victory.
Great shot, kid. That was 1 in a million.
A victory that will change their ordinary world for the better as they return with the elixir. After surviving this final epic brush with death, the hero returns with an elixir to share with others. This can be a literal healing elixir, but more often than not, it's a physical or emotional condition the hero brings about, like the peace or hope that follows the Shadow's defeat. Leia throws her arms around Luke. Solo runs in toward Luke and they embrace.
Hey! I knew you'd come back. I just knew it.
This stage is also where you'll find the denouement, where we wrap up any loose ends.
You can repair him, can't you?
We'll get to work on him right away.
Though a bit of unfinished business can help set up a sequel. Vader's ship spins off into space. And this is also our last chance to hand out any punishments or rewards. She places a gold medallion around Luke's neck, who is moved by the event. The stages of the hero's journey don't have specific lengths or pages, and their elements are often repeated, stretched out, moved up, or delayed. That works great for some writers, but you might benefit from the more explicit structure of Blake Snyder's beat sheet found in Save the Cat and covered in this video right here.